Welcome to Shatter.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. She said I was too clingy on a Tuesday morning, like she was commenting on the weather. We were standing in the kitchen, the light too bright, the silence too clean. She didn't look angry. That was the part that stayed with me. Calm voice, neutral face, like she'd rehearsed it in her head on the drive back from somewhere she called errands. She said she needed space, not a break. Not time. Space. I nodded. Engineers are good at understanding distance. Load limits. Expansion gaps. I said she should take all of it. I meant it in the most literal way possible. By noon, she was gone again. Hair done. Phone buzzing. She grabbed her keys and the same travel cup she always used, the one that smelled like Dunkin' no matter how many times it went through the dishwasher. She called it a quick meeting. She always did. PR never sleeps, she liked to say. I watched her leave and noticed something small and sharp. She didn't ask when I'd be back. The apartment filled with background noise after that. She left Disney Plus running like she always did, some bright show laughing at nothing. The couch still warm. The air still hers. It felt staged, like I'd stepped into a set after the actors walked off. I didn't confront her. I didn't scroll her phone or demand answers. I went to work. I finished my drawings. I adjusted timelines. But something shifted quietly, the way a structure fails long before it collapses. I started noticing gaps. Her late nights lined up too cleanly with my deadlines. The dinners she stopped attending were the same, ones our friend Mark suddenly seemed free for. He'd been around for years. Barbecues. Birthdays. Someone who knew my schedule better than my parents did. That night, she texted from the other room, saying she'd sleep on the couch to clear her head. The message came while she was 5 feet away. I didn't reply. I turned the volume down on the TV and listened to the quiet stretch wider. Space, I realized, wasn't what she wanted. Control was. And when I agreed too easily, when I didn't chase or argue or ask what I'd done wrong, something cracked in the balance she was used to. She fell asleep to the glow of the screen, certain I'd still be there in the morning. She didn't know yet that I'd already started stepping out of the frame. The first real crack didn't come from her. It came from Mark. He texted me late that night, casual tone, a line about a schedule change for an upcoming event. He said it like it was nothing, but the timing was wrong. He mentioned a venue I knew she'd been consulting on, one she'd told me wrapped weeks ago. Engineers notice inconsistencies. It's not suspicion. It's pattern recognition. I didn't respond. I just set the phone face down and let the silence do its work. The next morning, she moved through the apartment like I wasn't there. No tension, no guilt. Just confidence. She poured coffee, checked her phone, slipped into that practiced smile she used before meetings. The same cup, the same smell. Dunkin' again. She kissed my cheek out of habit, not affection, and said she'd be late. Something about a client dinner. She didn't say with who. She didn't have to. I went to work and stayed longer than usual. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to see what happened when I stopped syncing my life to hers. When I came home, the place felt rearranged. Not physically, strategically. Her shoes by the door. Her jacket missing. The TV already on, Disney Plus murmuring to an empty room like it was keeping her company. I checked our shared calendar. A habit I'd kept for years, making sure nothing overlapped, making sure she was supported. Whole blocks of time were suddenly blank. Too clean. Too intentional. Another message from Mark came in the next day. He apologized for the confusion. Said things had been hectic. Said he assumed I knew. That line sat heavy. People only assume that when they think someone's already been told. I still didn't confront either of them. I didn't need proof yet. I needed clarity. So I started pulling back in small, almost invisible ways. I stopped reminding her of meetings. Stopped adjusting my schedule around hers. Ate dinner alone, quick meals, standing at the counter. Subway wrappers in the trash by morning, gone before she noticed. She didn't react. That was the confirmation. Whatever was happening didn't require my presence. It relied on my predictability, on me staying exactly where I'd always been, steady and silent, filling the gaps while someone else stepped into the open space. That night, she said she needed more distance. Said she felt crowded. Said she couldn't breathe. I told her again to take all the space she needed. This time, she smiled. I didn't go looking for proof. Proof has a way of finding you once you stop protecting the lie. It showed up in fragments. A receipt she didn't bother hiding because she assumed I wouldn't look. A timestamp that didn't match the story she told earlier. A notification lighting up her phone while it sat face down on the table between us, vibrating like it was nervous. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. Patterns started lining up the way blueprints do when you finally place the right overlay on top. Mark's last-minute changes always fell into the same windows. Her client dinners followed my late nights too perfectly. The shared weekends stopped being shared, and somehow he was always mentioned just enough to feel normal. One night, I came home earlier than expected. The apartment was quiet except for Disney Plus still running, the laugh track echoing off walls that felt bigger every day. Her shoes were by the door, but her jacket was gone. On the counter, her phone buzzed once, then stopped. I saw the name light the screen before it went dark. Mark. No message preview. Just his name, bold and unafraid. That was enough. I sat at the table and didn't move until the screen dimmed. No anger. No rush. Just a slow, precise recalculation. Engineers don't panic when a structure shows stress. We redesign. Over the next few days, I started organizing quietly. I sold the extra chair from the dining set on Facebook Marketplace, listed it like it meant nothing. Someone picked it up while she was in meetings. I boxed up things that were mine without making it obvious. Old notebooks, tools, clothes she never noticed unless I wasn't wearing them. Evenings, I drove to Lowe's and walked the aisles without a list. Lumber, shelving, hardware for a life that didn't include explanations. The fluorescent lights were steady, honest, no performance there. At home, she talked more than usual. Not about us. About stress. About needing understanding. About how good it felt that I wasn't pressuring her. She said she appreciated how calm I was. How mature. She didn't notice the gaps. Didn't notice the missing chair. Didn't notice that I'd stopped syncing my calendar, stopped asking questions, stopped filling space. She thought she was creating distance to manage her options. What she didn't realize was that I was already removing myself from the equation entirely. I left on a Wednesday afternoon, because Wednesdays don't raise suspicion. She texted around noon saying meetings were stacked and she'd be late. There was a coffee emoji at the end, like punctuation for distance. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. By then, my phone was already halfway to becoming irrelevant. I waited until the hallway outside our apartment sounded empty. Midday quiet has a different weight to it. No drama. No witnesses. I carried boxes down in clean trips, measured and unhurried. Clothes. Tools. The rest of my books. Things that mattered. Things that didn't ask questions. The truck was parked where it always was. I said the model name once in my head like a closing note, and then let it go. After that, it was just the truck. Heavy door. Solid frame. I loaded it without rushing, the way you do when you're done explaining yourself. Inside, the apartment still looked like a life in progress. Her throw blanket on the couch. The TV paused mid-episode on Disney Plus, frozen faces smiling at nothing. The smell of her perfume in the hallway. I didn't turn anything off. I didn't clean. I didn't leave a note. I logged out of the shared accounts first. Streaming. Cloud storage. The grocery app. Small switches flipped in quiet succession. Then I transferred the last of my funds and closed the joint card. No alerts. No warnings. Just absence. Before I left, I took one last look at the kitchen. The mug by the sink. The one she never washed right away. I didn't take it. I wasn't erasing myself. I was extracting. By the time she realized something was wrong, I was already driving, already adjusting mirrors toward a future that didn't require negotiation. I stopped for a quick dinner at Subway, ate in the truck, windows cracked, radio low. No table, no conversation, just fuel. She called that night. Once. Then again. The phone buzzed and went quiet. By morning, the number she had no longer reached anything. She came home to a place that looked almost the same, and that's what made it worse. No blown-up fight. No overturned furniture. Just space where I used to be. Clean, intentional, irreversible. She asked friends if they'd seen me. Asked Mark, casually at first, then not so casually. She told people I was giving her space. What she didn't understand yet was that I hadn't stepped back. I had stepped out. I didn't disappear to punish her. I disappeared to regain signal. The place I moved into was temporary by design. Bare walls. Cheap couch. No history soaked into the floorboards. I kept the lights low and the routines simple. Work. Food. Sleep. Repeat. Stability without visibility. In the evenings, I went back to Lowe's. Not wandering this time. Buying with intent. Shelving for the garage space I'd rented. Hooks. Storage bins. Things that turned chaos into order. Every receipt felt like proof of progress. Quiet, measurable mine. I heard about her through other people before she found a way to reach me. She told friends I was taking space badly, that I'd misunderstood her needs, that she was worried but trying to respect my boundaries. The story shifted depending on who she talked to. With some, she sounded patient. With others, confused. With Mark, apparently, irritated. That was the first crack in his confidence. He wasn't built for silence. Event guys never are. They thrive on response, feedback, applause. Without me in the picture, he wasn't the secret anymore. He was just the guy standing too close, too often, in a space that suddenly felt exposed. She leaned on him harder. Asked questions he couldn't answer. Needed reassurance he wasn't equipped to give. What they had worked because I was stable in the background. Because my presence absorbed the weight. Now there was nothing buffering it. She tried indirect contact first. Liked an old photo. Commented on a post she knew I'd see through mutuals. Nothing. Then she started selling things online. Small items at first. Lamps. Decor. Pieces of the shared life that no longer made sense without me. I recognized the listings on Facebook Marketplace before she ever told anyone she was downsizing. That was when the calls started coming from unknown numbers. Short voicemails. Controlled tone. Asking for clarity. For closure. For a conversation. I deleted them without listening all the way through. Mark reached out once. Just once. Said he hoped I was okay. Said he didn't want things to be weird. I didn't reply. Weird required participation. I kept eating alone. Quick meals, no distractions. Subway became a routine stop. Eaten standing at the counter or in the truck, radio low. No one asking about my day. No one needing reassurance. From a distance, I watched the structure I'd quietly exited start to wobble. Not collapse. Just lose alignment. She had asked for space thinking it was elastic. She didn't realize space, once given fully, doesn't snap back. The shift became visible before it became loud. People started asking questions she couldn't answer cleanly. Mutual friends noticed I wasn't around. Not at gatherings. Not in photos. Not even as a background reference. At first, she framed it as a mutual decision. Space. Growth. Adult things. But stories like that need reinforcement. And I wasn't there to reinforce anything. Without me, her social balance tilted. She showed up alone to places where she never had before. She talked more. Laughed louder. Explained things no one had asked about. Mark stayed close. Too close. Like a substitute filling a role he didn't fully understand. People noticed the mismatch. Event coordinators are good at entrances, bad at foundations. One night, someone asked where I'd gone. Just a casual question, mid-conversation. She paused too long. The answer came out rehearsed and thin. That hesitation did more damage than any confession would have. After that, the tone around her changed. Invitations slowed. Conversations shortened. She wasn't excluded outright. She was observed. People didn't judge. They recalculated. The absence of a steady presence makes everyone reassess risk. At home, the apartment grew quieter in a way no streaming service could mask. Disney Plus played longer, louder, like it was trying to occupy space that no longer responded. She started selling more things online. Bigger items this time. Furniture we'd picked together. Pieces that anchored rooms. The listings popped up on Facebook Marketplace like quiet admissions that the structure had changed. Mark didn't like that phase. He wasn't meant to witness dismantling. He was meant to be an escape. I heard through someone else that he'd started pulling back, citing stress, workload, complications. Without my reliability in the background, the situation required more from him than he could give. She noticed. Panic doesn't announce itself loudly at first. It tightens routines. Makes people check their phones too often. Makes silence feel aggressive. She reached out to my family. To coworkers. Anyone who might still have a line to me. No one did. From where I stood, the change was almost elegant. No confrontation. No spectacle. Just a gradual loss of footing as the environment adjusted to my absence. She had asked for space assuming it would stay friendly, controlled, reversible. What she encountered instead was distance with weight. And distance, once it's real, starts teaching lessons no one can interrupt. Isolation doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in through gaps people assume will close on their own. By the time she realized Mark was no longer answering as quickly, the damage was already layered. He still showed up, but differently. Shorter visits. Less certainty. He stopped making plans far ahead. Started checking his phone more when they were together. People like him are comfortable when they're an option, not when they're the only one left. She felt it before she admitted it. The apartment became a holding space instead of a home. Nights stretched. Disney Plus ran in the background until it asked if anyone was still watching. Sometimes it wasn't. She slept on the couch more often, not because it was comfortable, but because the bedroom felt like a question she didn't want to answer. I stayed out of reach, but not unaware. Friends mentioned seeing her alone at places she used to bring me. Said she looked distracted. Said she talked about work too much, like she was padding silence. PR people don't handle empty rooms well. Attention is their currency, and without it, the value drops fast. She tried reaching me again. Different numbers. Emails sent and unsent. Messages through people who barely knew me. Each attempt was softer than the last. Less demanding. More careful. That was the shift. The moment control gave way to uncertainty. Meanwhile, my life stayed quiet and deliberate. I kept building, organizing, making space functional instead of emotional. Evenings were predictable. Work, then dinner, then small tasks that made the next day easier. Sometimes I stopped at Subway on the way back, ate alone, and appreciated how clean simplicity can feel. I went back to Lowe's one Saturday morning and picked up a workbench. Heavy, solid, something that didn't move unless you made it. I assembled it without music, without rushing. The steadiness felt earned. She started asking mutual friends if they thought I'd come back. Not if I was okay. Not if I was angry. If I'd return. As if my absence were a phase she could outlast by waiting. Mark didn't like that question. It reminded him he was temporary by design. Eventually, he stepped away completely. No drama. Just a convenient scheduling conflict that never resolved. She didn't tell people the truth. She didn't have to. Everyone could see the outline of what had happened without the details. She had asked for space believing it would stay safe. Instead, it turned into a room with no doors. And somewhere in that quiet, she finally understood that I wasn't coming back to fill it. The first time she saw me again wasn't planned. That's what made it shake her. I was leaving a site meeting downtown, walking with purpose, phone in my pocket, head clear. I didn't scan the street. I didn't expect anything. I'd stopped expecting her. That's when she stepped into my line of sight, like a memory that refused to stay buried. She froze before I did. Her face shifted through recognition, relief, panic, all in under a second. She said my name out loud, not as a greeting, but as a question, like she needed to confirm I was real. People around us kept moving. No one slowed down. No one noticed. I didn't stop. She walked beside me for half a block, talking fast, explaining things I hadn't asked about. She said she'd been worried. Said she didn't know how to reach me. Said she thought I just needed time. Her voice kept searching for a reaction, a cue, a signal she could still read. I gave her nothing. That silence landed harder than anything I could have said. She slowed. Her words thinned out. When I finally turned to look at her, it wasn't with anger. It was with distance. The kind that doesn't invite negotiation. She asked if we could talk sometime. Not now. Just sometime. I told her I didn't live in that space anymore. It wasn't a dramatic line. It was a statement of location. She stood there after I walked away, still holding the version of me that no longer existed. I could feel it. The confusion. The recalculation. She had expected a confrontation. Or relief. Or guilt. What she got instead was confirmation that the door she'd assumed was temporary had been sealed quietly, professionally. Later, I heard she'd gone back to the apartment and sat in the dark with the TV on, Disney Plus asking again if anyone was still watching. She didn't answer. She scrolled through old photos. Checked listings she'd posted weeks earlier on Facebook Marketplace, wondering if she'd sold too much, too fast. She told a friend she'd underestimated me. Not my anger. My resolve. That was the moment the narrative finally collapsed. The one where she realized I hadn't disappeared to make a point. I disappeared because I meant it. And from that distance, her need for answers sounded less like curiosity and more like loss catching up to her. Her collapse wasn't loud. That's what surprised people. There was no public breakdown. No dramatic posts. No long explanations. Just a slow, visible loss of control that showed up in small, undeniable ways. Missed meetings, strained smiles, a reputation for being distracted that she'd never had before. In her world, that was worse than scandal. The apartment became temporary even to her. She sold the last big pieces of furniture she couldn't justify keeping. The listings on Facebook Marketplace read like someone else's life. Neutral descriptions. No emotion. Just dimensions and pickup times. What couldn't be sold stayed and used, like props from a scene that had wrapped early. Work stopped feeling safe. PR runs on perception, and hers had shifted. Clients noticed she wasn't as sharp. Coworkers filled silences she used to command. Without a stable personal anchor, the constant performance started cracking. She compensated by working longer hours, staying visible, but visibility without grounding only magnifies fatigue. Mark was gone by then. Fully. No overlap. No explanation. He'd moved on to other circles, other distractions. The same way he'd entered her life. Quietly. Conveniently. She understood the symmetry too late. At night, the apartment was silent except for the hum of appliances and the occasional autoplay prompt from Disney Plus when she forgot to turn it off. She slept with lights on sometimes. Not out of fear. Out of avoidance. Darkness gave her too much room to think. That's when the memories started coming back uninvited. Not the big moments. The small ones she'd dismissed for years. Me adjusting my schedule so she wouldn't feel rushed. Me fixing things without announcing it. Me listening without interrupting. At the time, it felt ordinary, reliable, replaceable. Now, in the absence of noise, those moments sharpened. She realized I hadn't been clingy. I'd been present. And presence, once gone, doesn't echo. It leaves a clean cut. She tried one last time to reach me through a mutual contact, framing it as concern, then as accountability, then finally as regret. Each version was softer than the last. None of them reached me. By then, I was living differently. Not dramatically, just intentionally. My days had weight again. Evenings were quiet but full. I built things that stayed built. I slept without tension. Her world, by contrast, felt unstable in a way no rebranding could fix. She'd lost not just a partner, but the silent infrastructure that had allowed everything else to function. And in that realization, alone in a space she'd once asked to expand, she finally understood what it meant when I said she could take all of it. Because space, once empty, doesn't ask you back. The last contact came months later, and it didn't come directly. A mutual friend mentioned she'd asked about me again. Not where I lived, not who I was seeing, just whether I ever talked about her. The question itself was the answer. She wasn't looking for reconciliation. She was looking for proof she still existed somewhere in my narrative. She didn't. By then, my life had settled into something solid. Not exciting. Not performative. Just real. I spent weekends building out the garage space I'd claimed as my own, finishing projects that stayed finished. A few more runs to Lowe's, fewer every time, until there was nothing left to fix or assemble. Order replaced urgency. Silence replaced tension. I'd stopped checking who knew what about her. Stopped tracking outcomes. When you step fully out of a system, its fluctuations stop registering as relevant data. She, on the other hand, kept circling the absence. Friends said she'd grown quieter, more careful with words, less certain. She avoided places where couples gathered. Avoided questions she couldn't control. Space hadn't freed her. It had exposed her. One evening, she left a message through someone else. Not an apology. Not a plea. Just an observation. She said she finally understood what I'd meant when I agreed so easily. That she'd mistaken availability for weakness. That she'd thought space was something you could request without consequence. I never responded. Not because I was angry. Not because I wanted her to suffer. But because responding would have pulled me back into a dynamic I'd already outgrown. I wasn't proving a point anymore. I was maintaining a boundary. The truth is simple. I didn't disappear to teach her a lesson. I disappeared because I listened carefully to what she asked for. I took her words at face value. I gave her all the room she said she needed, and I didn't follow her into it. Now she lives with that space. Fully. Quietly. Permanently. As for me, I don't think about being missed. I think about alignment. About choosing environments where presence is valued, not tolerated. Where respect doesn't need reminders. She said I was too clingy and needed distance. I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.